Hello and welcome to video one. My name is Graham Wilson and it's a pleasure to be with you to share with you some key insights and ideas and thoughts around how you land change effectively in today's world. This is video one of a three-part video series, and in video one I'd like to share with you the context we're actually in and what are some of the barriers and mindsets and issues that we face when we're landing change in today's world, and why is it that so many businesses are really struggling. In video two we'll take that step further, and what we'll do is we'll share with you some key insights around the ChangePro framework and what we've developed really in terms of an end-to-end approach to craft projects and change in a way that really work in today's fast-paced world. And on video three, I'm going to share with you some really key insights around what I believe a great project leader needs to do on a day-to-day basis. So none of the theory as such, but practical tips, hints and ideas that have been out there, tried, tested and proven to make a big difference, to give you back power, to make sure you get stuff done, to make sure that you actually deliver change in the way that organizations are demanding at the moment. So with so much to cover, let's get stuck into video one. So video one really is really about the context we're in and what are some of the barriers and the reasons why we're finding it really difficult to land change in today's world. And I guess we have to start really is if we go back a few years and think about when we were educated and the world we lived in, and the way we were educated, of course, was in a way that was right at the time, but perhaps not applicable for today's world, because I'm sure you agree with me that the pace of change is so fast now that we live in extraordinary times with great opportunities, but it's a really fast, always on, always connected, challenging environment. And if you go back to our classroom, for example, and think about the way we were taught and the fact that the teacher was the font of all knowledge, and they would, for example, in a classroom, they might, for example, ask you a question about a particular topic, and if you knew the answer, of course, you'd stick your hand up, wouldn't you, and you'd share your answer, and the teacher would tell you then whether they believed you were right or wrong, and their view was always right, of course. And I often think about that and think about, what is it we need in today's world to be successful, and the way that we were developed doesn't really match that, because imagine now you're back in a classroom and the teacher asks you a question and you start to have a chat with your classmates and start to discuss and debate and have dialogue and collaborate and all the things we need to do in today's world. They would have probably, certainly if you went to school like mine, they would have probably told you off, wouldn't they? They probably said something like, don't confer, team working and that sort of stuff. If you think about it, was built into our mindset and we were taught it's cheating. It's not the thing to do. You have to be the person with answers. And I guess that was okay then, because it's a certain aspect of developing our minds to be able to solve problems on our own. But in today's world, of course, the pace of change is so fast, it's changing faster than we can keep up with it, that a lot of information and knowledge and techniques we had become obsolete really, really quickly, and it's not possible for us today, particularly as leaders in organizations, to know all the answers anymore. So we're having to collaborate more, we're having to share ideas and problems and questions with people, to work together to come up with really compelling solutions. And I guess there's a deep down mindset that says that's actually cheating and we shouldn't do that. And I see it all the time in organizations where project leaders will actually deliver the projects almost themselves single-handedly, and be very tired and very exhausted, and they don't actually set up their team for success and develop a really good team and co-create and co-build with stakeholders the plan to be able to deliver change. So I think the context we're in is probably the first blocker I'd like to share with you, really, which says that we now live in a world where it is very volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous, and I'm sure you've heard of the VUCA world, and if you haven't, go out there and Google it. And it's something that we were taught many years ago in the military around, how do you operate when the world is changing so fast, and you never know, in the military, for example, you don't know what the enemy's going to do. So how do you cope with that, and how do you deal with ambiguity, and how do you operate in tough environments? And I guess that's what we're needing to do today. But the problem with education, of course, that we had many years ago, it was delivered to us for predictability, and we were taught when we started to move into business that it's all about efficiency and getting things done effectively and scheduling things. And today it's more about being effective and collaborating and being more agile. So that's the first thing, the first message point for me really is around the fact that we need to unlearn an awful lot and start to learn new ways of operating. And I guess it's a bit like one of my big passions is Formula One, and if you go back to the 1950s, it'd take about 2 or 3 minutes to change the wheel on a car, in the pit stop, and if you look at it now, it's like seconds, and there's in the 1950s, for example, there was like 4 or 5 people that do it, and they had cotton overalls and big hammers to take the wheels off, and they give the driver a cup of tea, and those sort of things aren't relevant anymore because it's evolved, the rules have changed. There's 16 odd people now, they're a professional team, they're really quick, and the car comes in, it takes less than 2 seconds to get out again. And we need to update our skills and ways of thinking and mindsets, and not be back in those old ways, but start thinking in a different way. So that's number one. And in the ChangePro framework, we start to teach you, how you operate it in that world. The second blocker I find really is around the mindset of the leadership team, and quite often a leadership team haven't made the connection around how you implement strategies. A lot of organisations come up with strategies or so-called strategies, and they find it difficult to link all the pieces together because they've all been really good at running their parts of the business, and now they're trying to run the whole business. They find it quite difficult to actually create a coherent way of thinking and a very clear strategic map to drive action forward. And when they get into the implementation phase, they start to implement it through functions in a way that they've always done in the past. And my view of that these days is the trick, and the businesses that are really successful are the ones that can take the business from where they are now and move it to the future by being really awesome at running projects and change. They're really good at making stuff happen, if you like, and it's not in a bureaucratic way, it's in a very loose and a very powerful way, but it's organised, it's prioritised, and it's run in a very fast and efficient way. And again, we can show you how all that works and how to do that effectively within the programme. Now, that's the second blocker. So the first one is that our mindsets aren't quite right for today's world, and the skills and tools we've got perhaps are redundant. We need to build and learn some new stuff. Second thing is that whole thing around how you implement strategies through projects and change, and we need to make sure that we grasp that and understand that and make that happen. And that happens at all levels, by the way. For example, if my team, for example, aren't working as well as it should do, then I can use a project and change way of thinking to take my team from where it is to a future state. And if we're working with sports teams, for example, we will have a team and a personal development plan for each of the players, and a team strategy to take it to where our aspiration wants it to go. And that really is a number of initiatives and ideas and thoughts that we need to change the way the team operate to get to that future state and deliver the results that we really need. So thinking that way is really important. And then the final blocker I really want to share with you on this video is the fact that a lot of organisations, they separate out the solution with the change piece. And let me explain what I mean by that. So the solution really is done through a project, and that's the technical solution. How do we build something, reconfigure something, get something to actually make sure the business operates in a different way. And the change piece really is, for me, is really about how do you get the business to really want the change, and how do you get the business behind the change to actually make it happen. So I've seen it many times where, particularly in IT-led projects, where a techie team come in, they build an amazing system, they spend an awful lot of money, it goes live on a Friday, actually probably not a good day to go live, but let's say it goes live on a Friday, and people come in on Monday, and they have no idea about it. They might have gone on a training course a month ago or so before, and the whole system starts to fail. People don't have the confidence in it, and then slowly get this downward cycle. And quite often that's when organisations will bring in the change team to start to overcome the resistance. And I think that's fundamentally flawed, and for me it should be the other way around. I think what we need to do is make sure that we have a really great change team that get the business ready and wanting the change. Also a great technical team who can then drive and work in parallel and work together in order to deliver the right outcome. So for me, is the business should really want the change and support the change. And we worked with a retailer that were doing a big change program in terms of their store format, and we helped them save over £185 million purely by doing that concept and making sure that the stores were ready for change. They wanted it, they embraced it, they supported it, and they helped the project team to actually make it happen. So we know it works, and it's a really powerful approach. And again, we'll share with you some tools and techniques and methodologies and ideas about how that works. And we're working in a world where it's very ambiguous, so it's really important to think about the fact that one project type does not fit all. So it's no good saying that every project we do is agile or every project we do is waterfall. We have to develop project leaders, and we ourselves have to be really good at looking at context, looking at situation, and defining and crafting the right approach and using the right techniques and methodologies for that situation. So how risky is a project? Do we know what the problem is? Do we know what the solution is? Do we need to use an agile approach, waterfall approach, maybe human-centered design, or lean thinking, Six Sigma, or waterfall as well? We need to have all these tools available, and what ChangePro does really is give you a framework that guides your thinking to enable you to choose the right approach. For example, you might, over a project lifecycle, have a number of different approaches as the project evolves and runs out and gets into implementation. And you also need to think about the change approach. What are we actually going to do in terms of change? What is our change approach? What methodologies are we going to use? I like the ADKAR approach. I like AIM as well, and there's Kotter's approach as well, and for large organisational change. So what is the change approach we're actually going to use? And then start to think about having a framework to actually deliver that. And in video 2, I'd like to share with you that framework and show you and give you an overview of the power of it, and how when you get people thinking the same way with the same language and having a common set of templates and a way of working and a way of thinking is really, really important. I find a lot of organisations that go straight to implementation without doing the thinking up front, and I think again that's fundamentally flawed. So I hope you found that really useful, and if I recap really on the key messages for this short video is that we really need to think about ourselves and the mindsets we have, and move away from perhaps some of the things and unlearn some of the things that we were taught in the past. It's not possible for us to have all the answers anymore. So we're not the teachers anymore. We need to be the facilitators and the crafters and the people who work with groups to co-build and develop the solutions. So we need to start looking at different skill sets that we require. And on video 2, I'll share that with you. We also need to make this transition, the fact that the way you implement strategy is through projects and change. And finally, we need to make sure that we really integrate change and projects together as one format. And I always challenge my project and change teams to make sure that the project and change plan is on one page, it's coherent, it's sequenced, and it's done in the right way. So there's some key thoughts for you. Again, I hope you found that really useful. Again, contact me if you've got any questions, thoughts about it. Video 1 really was an overview, and on video 2, what we're going to do is we're going to get into what does a really good project change framework really look like for today's world. And a reminder on video 3, then we'll get into your personal skills around what is it you need to do to be really effective as a project leader in today's world. So keep in touch. I wish you every success. Start applying it, and if you're really interested in looking at this in more depth, then I urge you to go and have a look at our website, which is www.changepro.co.uk, and you can have a really good look at our framework and ideas and thoughts. So I wish you well and every success.